Dyslexia is often misunderstood. Many people think it means seeing letters backward, or that it is a sign of low intelligence. This is simply not true. Dyslexia is a specific learning difference that is neurological in origin. It is a different way the brain is wired to process language, a different way of thinking. It primarily affects the skills involved in accurate and fluent word reading and spelling. This is not a disease to be cured, nor is it a sign of a person's inability to learn. It is a common difference affecting about 1 in 5 individuals, which means in any classroom, several children likely have this unique brain wiring. Understanding this is the first step toward providing the right kind of support and celebrating the diverse ways our minds can work. It is crucial to separate dyslexia from a person's overall intelligence. Many of the brightest, most creative people in the world are dyslexic. They think in innovative ways and often excel in fields that require big-picture thinking, problem-solving, spatial reasoning. It's a bottleneck in the reading process. Imagine having a brilliant idea for a building but struggling with the blueprint symbols. The architectural vision is there, but the language of the plans is the challenge. This is a helpful way to think about the experience of a dyslexic reader navigating a page of text. The term learning difference is much more accurate than learning disability. It reframes our perspective from one of deficit to one of diversity. The brain of a person with dyslexia is not broken. It just takes a different route to get to the same destination of understanding. This alternate route can be slower and more effortful for reading, but it can also lead to remarkable strengths in other areas. By recognizing dyslexia as a variation in human cognition, we can move away from stigma and toward empowerment. We can focus on building bridges to literacy that are designed for their specific neurological landscape. To understand dyslexia, we need to look at how the brain learns to read. Reading is not a natural process for humans like speaking is. Our brains are not born with a pre-wired reading center. Instead, learning to read involves forging new connections between different parts of the brain, the areas for vision, language, sound processing. For most people, these connections form an efficient, super-fast pathway that allows for automatic word recognition. For dyslexic individuals, however, this pathway is less efficient. The brain's wiring for reading takes a different, less direct route, which makes the process of sounding out words slow and laborious rather than fast and automatic. The primary area of difference lies in the phonological processing system. This is the brain system for recognizing and manipulating the individual sounds or phonemes within spoken words. For example, to read the word cat, a reader must recognize the letters CAT and connect them to the sounds /K/A/T/. For a dyslexic brain, this process of breaking a word down into its constituent sounds is a significant challenge. It's not a problem with hearing or vision, it is a difficulty at the cognitive level of processing the sound structure of language. This is the core reason why learning to read is so unexpectedly difficult for bright children with dyslexia. The most common signs of dyslexia stem directly from this phonological weakness. In young children, this may appear as difficulty learning nursery rhymes, trouble with rhyming words, mispronouncing long words. As they enter school, the signs become more apparent. The first major hurdle for a dyslexic reader is decoding. This is the fundamental skill of applying knowledge of letter-sound relationships to correctly pronounce written words. It is the process of translating print into speech. For a non-impaired reader, this becomes so automatic that they are barely aware it is happening. For a reader with dyslexia, this is the most significant barrier. Each word on the page can feel like a new puzzle to be solved. They must consciously and laboriously sound out letters and blend them together, a process that consumes a tremendous amount of mental energy. This struggle with decoding is the hallmark of dyslexia and the primary source of reading difficulties. This intense effort spent on decoding directly impacts the second hurdle, reading fluency. Fluency is the ability to read with speed, accuracy, and proper expression. It is the bridge between decoding and comprehension. Because dyslexic readers must expend so much cognitive effort on figuring out individual words, their reading is often slow and choppy. They may read in a monotone voice because all their attention is focused on just getting the words right. This lack of fluency makes reading a tiring and frustrating experience. It can be compared to walking through deep mud. Every single step requires immense effort, making it impossible to enjoy the journey or pay attention to the surrounding scenery. When decoding and fluency are compromised, the third and ultimate goal of reading, comprehension, inevitably suffers. Reading comprehension is the ability to understand, interpret, and find meaning in what is being read. If a student is spending all of their mental energy trying to figure out the words on the page, they have very little cognitive capacity left to think about the meaning of the sentences, paragraphs, the story as a whole. They might successfully read a paragraph aloud, but when asked what it was about, they may have no idea. In fact, their listening comprehension is often a significant strength and is typically at or above their age level. This discrepancy between their ability to understand spoken language and their difficulty understanding written language is a key indicator of dyslexia. The problem is not with understanding. It is with accessing the information locked behind the code of print. The code metaphor helps explain why support needs to focus on unlocking print access. It is important to understand not every child who struggles with reading has dyslexia. Reading difficulties can arise from a variety of sources. Some children may struggle due to inadequate instruction, a lack of exposure to language and books in early childhood, other environmental factors. These are often called general or experiential reading difficulties. With high-quality, systematic instruction, these students can often catch up. Their struggles link to opportunity or instruction, not neurobiology. Dyslexia, on the other hand, is persistent and neurologically based. A child with dyslexia struggles despite average or above-average intelligence and adequate classroom instruction. Their difficulty is unexpected. It stems from a core deficit in phonological processing. This is a brain-based difference that doesn't just go away with standard teaching. General reading difficulties may affect skills across the board. Dyslexia shows a specific pattern of strengths and weaknesses, notably the gap between high thinking ability and low decoding skill. Response to intervention differs. A student with general difficulties often responds quickly to a well-structured, phonics-based program. They are filling gaps. For dyslexia, progress is slower and requires more intensive structured multi-sensory approaches. They build new neural pathways through repetition and systematic practice. Family history is a clue. Dyslexia is highly heritable. Persistence despite good instruction strongly indicates dyslexia. Identifying dyslexia isn't about labeling. It's about understanding the problem so we can use effective, evidence-based interventions that help people with this learning profile succeed. A clear path allows support to be targeted and hopeful. Next, proven strategies for success. The wonderful news is that we know how to teach children with dyslexia to read. Decades of research have identified the most effective methods grounded in a structured, systematic, explicit approach to language. One of the most powerful strategies is multisensory learning: sight, sound, touch, and movement. For example, see the letter B, say it sound/B/, trace the shape in sand or with a finger. This creates multiple pathways in the brain. This instruction is called the Orton-Gillingham approach or structured literacy. It is methodical and cumulative, starting with the simplest concepts and building step by step. It explicitly teaches the structure of language, phonology, orthography, syllable types, morphology. Nothing is left to chance. For the dyslexic brain, this explicit, organized instruction is exactly what's needed. It makes the code of written language predictable and manageable. In addition, assistive technology has become a game changer. These tools do not replace instruction. They provide crucial support so students can access grade-level curriculum. Text-to-speech software can read digital text aloud. Speech-to-text programs let students dictate essays and reports. These tools level the playing field, reducing frustration and letting a student's intelligence and creativity shine. Ultimately, the most effective support combines these elements with individualized instruction. One-size-fits-all does not work. Use diagnostic assessments to find exact weaknesses and strengths. Then design a learning plan targeting those areas. This requires patience, expertise, and a strong partnership between the school and the family. With this combination, explicit instruction, multi-sensory instruction, helpful technology, and a personalized plan, students with dyslexia are not just taught to cope, they are taught to read, write, and succeed, unlocking their full academic potential. The impact of dyslexia extends far beyond the classroom and the technical act of reading. The daily struggle and frustration can take a significant emotional and psychological toll. Imagine being a bright, curious child who day after day fails at a task that seems to come so easily to your peers. Children with dyslexia often internalize this struggle, believing they are not smart or that something is fundamentally wrong with them. They may feel ashamed, embarrassed, anxious about being asked to read aloud in class. This constant feeling of falling short can erode a child's self-esteem and confidence in their own abilities. This emotional fallout can lead to a range of behavioral issues that are often misunderstood. A child who is trying to avoid the painful experience of reading might act out in class, become the class clown, withdraw and become quiet and invisible. They might complain of stomach aches or headaches to avoid going to school. These are not signs of a bad child but rather coping mechanisms designed to protect themselves from failure and embarrassment. It is essential for parents and teachers to look beyond the behavior and see the underlying struggle. Understanding that these actions are rooted in anxiety and frustration is the first step toward providing the emotional support they so desperately need. The fear of being exposed can create a state of chronic stress for a student with dyslexia. They may live in constant worry about being called on, having to take a spelling test, being asked to write on the board. Over time, this can lead to a deep-seated school aversion and a loss of interest in learning altogether. The child who once loved stories and asked endless questions may become disengaged and passive. It is a tragedy when the struggle to read extinguishes a child's natural curiosity and love of learning, which is why addressing the emotional component of dyslexia is just as important as providing reading instruction. Therefore, creating a supportive and understanding environment is paramount. Children with dyslexia need to hear, early and often, that they are intelligent and that their reading struggles are not their fault. They need to have their strengths recognized and celebrated, whether in art, sports, science, or problem solving. Encouraging them to pursue their passions helps build their confidence and provides them with an area where they can feel successful and competent. When children feel safe, understood, and valued for who they are as a whole person, they develop the resilience needed to persevere through their reading challenges and maintain a positive sense of self. Emotional care and reading instruction go hand in hand. Next, strengths and the promise of the dyslexic mind. While the focus is often on the challenges of dyslexia, it is equally important to recognize the remarkable strengths that frequently accompany this different way of thinking. Many individuals with dyslexia excel at big-picture thinking and at seeing connections that others miss. They are often highly creative, innovative, and skilled at three-dimensional spatial reasoning. These are the minds of architects, engineers, entrepreneurs, and artists. Their brains may be less efficient at decoding words, but often excel at holistic thinking, interconnected thinking, and out-of-the-box thinking. This is not a consolation prize. It is a distinct cognitive advantage. Early diagnosis and support are the keys that unlock this potential. When dyslexia is identified early, we can provide evidence-based instruction before a child falls behind. This prevents a downward spiral of academic failure and protects their precious self-esteem. Early diagnosis demystifies the struggle for the child and their family. It gives a name to the difficulty and a clear path forward, shifting focus from blame to action. A supportive environment at home and at school reassures the child they are not broken, but learn differently. We must view dyslexia not as a deficit, but as part of human neurodiversity. Provide tools like audiobooks and speech-to-text software as standard options. Value different problem-solving styles and appreciate unique dyslexic insights. Building a world friendly to the dyslexic mind makes a world better for everyone, allowing diverse talents to flourish. The message must be hope and empowerment. Your journey may be different, but your destination is not limited. With the right instruction, unwavering support, and belief in your strengths, you can achieve anything. Dyslexia is a challenge, but it does not define you. Many of the most accomplished people in history have been dyslexic. They leverage their strengths to change the world. The promise of the dyslexic mind is vast, and with understanding and support, there is no limit to what can be achieved. Hope, support, and practical instruction open doors, for individuals and for society. If you suspect dyslexia, seek a screening, pursue evidence-based support, and celebrate strengths along the way. Thanks for watching. Inside Dyslexia: How it Affects Reading and Learning.